Yeah. Welcome everyone to another Mere Mortals Meandering session. It is us, the Mere Mortals, and a meandering session is where we pick on some little bits and pieces of topics, everything that we feel like that's happening in the week that will be coming up perhaps. Mm-hmm. This is actually being a double pre-recorded one because one is has gone to Tasmania. He's
Correct.
Gone to see the.
So by the time this gets released, I'll be back from Tasmania, but nice. I would have enjoyed myself down at bottoms of I think 3 degrees, 2 degrees, even negative 1 degrees in some of the places.
In bloody spring.
Yeah. And then tops of 13 degrees.
Get out of here, man. That is not enjoyable.
Little chilly.
It's gone for it's not a holiday. That's like a penitence or something.
I was saying to someone, I was talking to them about Wales and how they were saying that they've been in Tasmania and it's a little bit similar in terms of some of the landscapes and the places that you find and even some of the temperature. And I kind of went in my mind, awesome. Like I really would enjoy seeing that and experiencing that, but certainly not living it. I was like, that's not a living location for sure. Visit, awesome, but yeah.
Yeah, that's the same for me with regards to a lot of locations actually. Nice for a visit. Would I stay there? Hell no. No, way too much.
But I'll divulge more of Tasmania in the following
episode. For sure. Yeah, we'll get a little bit of a trip report. That'll be cool. Mm-hmm. And yeah, so meandering session, as you've already just seen, we meander. Mm-hmm. We go across different topics, what we feel like, what's not. We're indoors as well, so continuing on from the laptop issues from last week and 337, you've now got us in here indoors and a flashback, man. It's been a while since we've done a single
camera,
a non-live single recording in here. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm going to say more than a year.
Yeah, it's way more than a year. Yeah, long time.
Yeah. So, anywho, my topic for today is sort of continuing on from the 337, which was we touched upon money a little bit and how I was being selfish by not getting money. Funnily enough, with our interest peaking, well, not peaking, but starting to really understand what crypto was about, probably a year and a half ago now. My understanding of money has changed greatly. It's like way different compared to what I used to think money was. And so I wanted to ask you about, how has your understanding of money changed? Do you view things differently than you used to and treat it differently than you used to?
Understanding of money, are you talking at the personal scale? Are you talking at the economic level?
However you want to take that.
I think, definitely changed on the the personal level, where I would have seen money in the past be a sense of, if I have this, then I can obtain that. More of the obtaining, more on the, if I have the money, I can buy more food, or I can do those things. Or it was probably a mixture of survival / obtainment, I guess I'd call it, where now money is much more on the aspect of freedom, of choice, of anything that if I'm trying to obtain more of it, it's not a choice for me. If I'm trying to obtain more money, it's not because I'm trying to obtain something else. As in, I'm not on the stage that I'm like, I'm trying to obtain more money so I can get a better car, or I'm trying to obtain more things so I can buy another place, something like that. There's none of that. It's more, if I want more income to potentially turn into assets that will deliver me time or space or flexibility. Okay. I guess on a personal level, I think economically, on a more macro scale, I think the understanding of crypto in the flawed system that we operate in a normal financial system, I think it opens your eyes to, maybe once upon a time you think of government doing everything absolutely the best for you, and I don't think that is a lie. I think that they try to do the best that they can do with the means that they have, but that the system itself there's a lot of things within the system that don't or can be better. Not that they don't work, it's that they probably don't work as effectively or as efficiently as they can. They particularly side more to people who have the money or have the wealth, as opposed to people who don't have the means. So another aspect, and just the aspect of money as the differentiation of currency versus the differentiation of money in the physical to the digital conversation. So the whole aspect. I think back in the day, I used to really think that and this might have been the case at some point in time, but when the Royal Bank or the banks actually printed more money and actually gave more money, the saying is printed more money, right? And you imagine, okay, well, that's more money in the circulation. What effectively actually happens is to just change the digital tracking. Like, they just go to the digital computer and just go, change the digits, here you go, you've all got my money. Fantastic. So that differentiation of what digital changes means to more money being in circulation in the comparison to, an absolute standard of how much Bitcoins there are, and that sort of comparison. It's like, oh, okay, that gives me the idea of what's something that's immutable, not changing. There's deflationary in the sense that the more people getting it, it's going to become deflationary because it's not increasing, to something increasing completely. Yeah, there's also all those aspects which either I didn't know, I didn't care about 5 years ago, let's say.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
If you'd asked me, I would have probably said something along the lines of, it's the thing that allows me to do what I want to do. That's mostly how I've viewed it. And, portions of that, and I still hold that as well. That's still partly what I think of it, but it's definitely become more nuanced. I think I've told the story ages ago, but one of the very first things I bought with my own kind of pocket money as a kid was this toy, which was kind of like a version of Doctor, but it spun around, and so everyone on each side of the table would try and pick it out, and it was just this big. It was not fun. It was like just a big piece of crap. Yep, essentially, and this is also probably where I got my dislike of advertising from, because that thing was advertised on TV and I was like, oh my God, like I need to have this thing.
And there was shit.
Yep. Yeah. So I definitely now add elements of time onto it for sure. So this is in terms of, and I used to do this somewhat, which was, okay, if I want to spend $80 on that thing, that's roughly 2 hours of work, or, of where I used to work, or maybe it was a bit more, whatever my salary was. And I would look at it and instead of it being like, it's $80, that's now 2 hours. And so I'd already started to like switch my thinking on terms of that. But now I don't know, I'm even thinking of adding on things like it puts you in touch almost with base reality and consciousness. And so what I mean by that is, like, if you're in touch with reality, you can kind of alter it into new exciting forms and ways. So if you've got Jeff Bezos level of money, you can click your fingers and hills get demolished, houses get built, armies get formed. If you got that level of money, you can do a lot of things and really radically alter reality around you and around other people as well. And so it's sort of like, you're in touch with base reality if you've got a lot of it, because I think that's kind of like, you can kind of predict what's going to happen. There's physically, as a human being, Elon Musk, there's not that much. Like, he's not twice as strong as anyone else. He can't do these like crazy physical feats of moving reality, but he can kind of predict what's going to happen better than anyone else and put himself in positions where he can take advantage of that. And that's how I sort of see money as well. Like the people with the most of it are kind of more in touch with reality by and large, discounting people who got lucky and scams and things like that. So yeah, I was sort of thinking, like, if you understand broad scale human psychology, then you understand money in a way. It's like, you understand what people value and you can get more of a certain type of value from them. So yeah, I don't know. It's just it's funny seeing how my perceptions of it have changed over this last year and a bit, and I still find it kind of boring in a way. As much as we've both found it fascinating to dive into different aspects of it and learning more about it. At the end of the day, it's still like, money is unimportant. It's the things that happen around it, like having more time to spend with loved ones, creating memories, being able to help friends, to even the smaller things like getting nice mouth pleasure by eating really tasty food and things like that. So yeah, I don't know. I don't think I'll ever fall in the trap, which some people do, of chasing money for money's sake. I don't.
For the sake of just having more of that number. I
guess. Yeah, for sure.
I guess, so don't know if I computes with me. So you said that of having more money, you have more of a connection to reality, I guess.
I feel maybe it's vice versa. It's more if you have a better connection to reality of what the world actually is, what happens, then I think by extension you'll be able to at least have a better chance of having money, this concept of money.
Gotcha. Okay. So is it like playing my mind is like, would let's say a Buddhist monk who's almost reached enlightenment, would their understanding of the world mean that they should be someone who could make a lot of money?
Maybe not. Yeah. I feel like that kind of mindset where you can investigate things and sort of like draw logical conclusions from it, which I think now there are aspects of that which is like, if they believe the Buddha is, could literally, I don't know, fight single-handedly against Shiva or, the God with many arms and that sort of thing. Well, that's maybe they're not that in touch with kind of base reality,
I say like it's the I guess what you're saying is that if you understand, like, I guess something about money is that if you understand the reality of how people work,
the world, how
what they value,
exist,
then
as well.
Money can come a lot easier, I guess, because you understand those things.
I feel so. I feel, yeah, and that's kind of like the prediction aspect of it. If you have something and you can kind of predict what's going to happen in the future, then you can take advantage of whether that's going to be a good thing or a bad thing. If it's a war, well, okay, maybe I won't keep my assets in Ukrainian farms that could get blown up.
Yeah. There's also a certain, I guess, leveler of money. I guess it's probably another thing is that you can certainly have too little, and there's great issues that come with that, and it's probably the number one, because on the hierarchy of needs, you probably want shelter, you want food, you want all these things so you can exist.
Yep.
Right? Move away from being surviving to just living.
Definitely.
But if you're thriving, if you're on the other end, and you've also got an excess of money to the point that you're really not operating in that field. Let's just say that you're living at 20, 30 grand a year and you're going in excess of $2 million a year, right? So you have excess of money. I think that will also put you in a position, even though if you're coming at it from the viewpoint of either you're like just struggling to make it or you have some money, but you go, oh man, life would be a lot better if I was earning $2 million a year. I kind of think otherwise. That wouldn't be as fun. And some of the reasons as to why is that, when you're starting to earn more money in whatever streams and fields, other things start biting into you that you don't realize into commonplace. Now, how often do you think really of how much inflation's impacting you?
Yeah.
Not really. Right? And neither do I. Like, it's not like I'm really, really thinking about it. Now, that's because we're not in the survival level. We're just fine. We're fine with it. Now, if you were quite wealthy, if you had a lot of money, yes, you might actually be thinking about inflation in a certain way. Because you go, oh, damn, that's $2 million that's actually being lost because I haven't properly invested something in the right place. You might have, so essentially, you could have the money sitting in the bank account and have lost $7 million. So if you had, $100 million in the bank, let's just say like, yep, wonderful. You might have lost on paper, on the digital, in the, what would I say, in its the value that you can utilize the money to do things with, you've lost $7 million in that form.
And if you're really poor as well, because that's where you really see the increase in the kind of essential needs, energy, food.
Well, I guess what I'm saying is all of these things, yeah, if you're poor, like it's bad all around. It doesn't matter. But the thought pattern that it'll be just completely bliss at the other end if you have all this money is also not true, because you'll also have other suffering in the forms of, you will know mentally like, oh damn, I'm like losing a lot of money here. Like, you have to be smart about the way that you have to invest your money, or else you're losing quite big chunks of money as it goes. Losing out of $100, losing 3%, like, it doesn't sound like a lot in the mentality of a human. $3 out of $100 doesn't sound like a ton load. Now, if you have $100 million and you lose $3 million, maybe it feels like the same in the same of like $100, $3, $100 million, $3 million. But I hazard a guess that you'd feel that a lot more. You'd feel it like you go, I mean, that's a lot of money that I'm losing here because I'm not doing anything.
Yeah, well, and losing is a hard term to get around because it's not like it's going from 100 to 97.
It's still the 100, but it's just your expense power, something like that. Like the expense power is lower, so it's just not being as usable as it should be. And then
spending power is that?
Spending power. So and I guess it just makes me think, if you did have a lot of money, it just comes with a lot of challenges. It comes with a lot of problems. One, if people know you're extremely wealthy, are they gonna, you're gonna have to have the deviation of do people really like you for you, or do they like you for the money?
Yeah.
You're gonna go down the path of, are you gonna have to hire and with potentially extra assets, even if you don't have extra assets, you just need like protection, security. Yeah. If you're buying multiple houses and you get into like, okay, well now I've got to spend all this much, and all of it is just more stress, more details, more work, or you have to pay other people to deal with all of that. So you just end up spending all this extra money for all this sort of stuff. Where at least personally for me, I'm like, oh, that doesn't sound fun. Like I don't want to be spending a weekend having to deal with, oh, I've got to pay just 4 people that were cutting the grass on this property. And I was like, no. That just, like, I want to have the freedom. There's going to be a certain balance of freedom. And I don't know what that looks like. And it's going to be like individual to each person. But to go like, okay, this amount of money allows you for this particular freedom. Everything in excess is probably okay until a point. And then it counterbalances to go, now like that amount of money is costing you time in having to look after it in some way, shape or form.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
There's probably something around that as well.
So this was all fun, but let's add some realness to the above as well. So do you know what was the theme of each crypto bubble that has happened in the past? So there was roughly one in 2013, one in 2017, one in 2021. Do you know what the kind of theme was that occurred with each one of them?
The kind of theme?
Yeah, so what was it that kind of drove that bubble? That was the main... maybe like the mass media would talk all about it, and this was kind of the reason why it grew.
I guess I'd say DeFi in 2017, NFTs and the like in 2021. Not sure what 2013 would have been.
Yeah, okay. So in general, it seemed to just be BTC as a whole, just the concept of a digital currency was kind of the 2013 one, because that was all that was around, really. There was maybe one or two others.
It probably also was because of the hyperinflation that was happening in a lot of countries, like European countries, so Spain and the like. So Jeff got into knowing Bitcoin around that time, because it was around the time that Greece was defaulting, Spain was having a shit time. There was all of that post 2008 GFC displeasure on the big European countries that was getting absolutely destroyed. So there was a lot of conversation around that hyperinflation and Bitcoin. So it might be part in that, and Bitcoin was the only thing at the time.
There's always macro things that are happening that can do it. So for 2017, it was the ICOs, the initial coin offering. So this was where everyone was going, oh, you can do... you can have this other one which is different, and it does these things. So this is like the Ethereum virtual machine, Cardano bring out its own, and it was sort of like almost like the crowdfunding that kind of seemed to be what drove it. 2021 was actually more DeFi and NFTs adding on to that as well. So I was thinking, what would be the theme of the next one? Let's just take this 4-year cycle and just imagine it's going to happen again, 2025. What do you think could be the theme for that? Because I've got my idea for what it would be, but I'd be curious to know if you had to imagine what it is that would be so fascinating.
Centralization.
Yeah.
More centralization.
So like this is getting into like apps or something that people could use on a broad scale, but still interacts with Bitcoin behind the scenes, for example.
Yeah, sort of. I guess it would be, the next step up that I would see for all of it would be centralization in the way that you would see companies that exist today, or new companies that come into play, which centralize a lot of the interactions and a lot of the eyeballs, so that you have more individuals being able to partake in the system. And when I say more centralized, I say in a more secure way to the individual, not secure way to the system. itself. I'd say that would be probably the next leg up, because something in me screams at more centralized in the way that you have trusted brands or trusted parties where people will be more wanting to partake and interact in the system. So introduce new people into the system, for one, and that probably that freedom of doing so will have to have some sort of centralization or losing of the distribution that makes the existing Bitcoin or the like was a big thing for the initial people who got into it, I guess, or what the initial idea. I think that probably the movement will be right now, if you were to get Tom, Dick and Harry off the street and what's going to make them go into the space and work out in that, perhaps it might be that Adidas starts doing a thing where they're using their own token within their own network, using existing backend technology. So they might be it might be linked to an existing one, Cardano, Polygon, whatever, pick your flavor. But using a more secured, more internal sort of tokenomic structure that people can play in that space or play in other different spaces. So you're not doing on the foundational coins, if you like. They're using just some other sort of token formats, but it loses some of its security or some of its ways of interacting in exchange for operability and applicability to it. Yeah. Similarly with, I saw recently that Apple is allowing, I think it was NFT sales through their applications, through their apps, but they're taking some massive cut, like 30%. Nice. So it was like a 30%. So like if you sell, like
it's not even that massive for Apple.
So it was like, oh, you can do this, but if you're doing that, then you have to pay us this much percentage, right? Yeah. So I similarly still see the view of the next one is going to be more people getting into a space because it's just easier to interact with, not necessarily safer or the true decentralized environment. And then that's where I fast forwarded even more. So then another 4 or 5 years later, when more individuals, more companies are in the space, I could see it then starting to become even more and more decentralized. And that being the next leg up, that starts overtaking the centralized nature of things. And you just have very decentralized pockets of it all.
Okay. So would it sort of be like tokenizing things? Would that map onto what you were just saying? Like everything gets tokenized?
No, because just tokenizing things wouldn't change the structure of, I guess my example here would be like a practical one would be right now everyone operates in hot wallets. This would be like akin of people just being like, I don't give a shit about hot wallets or cold wallets. Just let me operate within an exchange or somewhere that can host my money in a secure enough way that I'm not having to deal with the coin. So I think that there's going to be an adoption limitation to the fact that you have to control your own keys, your own coins at the moment. I think whatever next layer step is one which is safe enough that you don't have to do that just yet. It's the next intermediary between banks.
Yeah, the uncut FM, those three that I got on there. To get that, all I had to do was password and username to create an account. And then it did it for me. And it was only after I was clicking on things that I realized, oh, there's an actual wallet behind here that has these things in there.
Gotcha.
I think that kind of experience, kind of maps onto what you're saying. For me, look, predictions are hard, but what I hope would happen would actually be kind of the rise of value for value. I'd love it if value for value was an actual kind of mainstream term in a way, because people use all sorts of things at the moment, Patreon, tipping, donations, whatnot. I think it'd be cool if there would be the just economy was a lot of people were starting to use value for value. And now we've mostly heard this in the podcasting terms. And so it's like, oh, well, there's only maybe like 300,000 podcasts that are regularly updated in the world. That's not going to change shit all. But definitely the amount of interest that people are showing towards music and somehow being able to get musicians to not get ripped off like they do at the moment, which there seems to be so much pain over there where I could sort of see like if musicians as a broad group started doing value for value, I think that could kickstart things to an exciting new level. And how they do that with the streaming of payments, whether they do it through NFTs, whether they do it with, other unknown, unheard of created things. So maybe you could even say it'd be like micropayments would maybe be the actual facilitation, or like that would be the next kind of thing behind it, I guess. And value for value is a component of that maybe. But yeah, if I had to wish something could be behind the next one, it would certainly be that. And I think that'd be really cool.
Yeah.
But
I think that would be cool. I would foresee that amongst everything.
Can value for value work with digital, non-digital products, for example? I don't know. I'm not sure how many people have tested it, but I'm kind of thinking like doing value for value if you're selling coffee. I don't know. Probably not. I think there'd be a lot of things where you couldn't apply it. So if it's only for digital products, I think the challenge might not be enough.
I think the challenge there is just it's far too much of a change, I think, for it to occur in such a span of time. Because for it to become like the overwhelming mode of interaction in a monetary way, like value for value, you would have to have either all the large companies buy into it or get absolutely decimated in the process for it. And I couldn't envision how in 4 years a competitor could defeat the likes of Apple or Intel or whatever in the infrastructure, in the setup that they've put in place. Like that doesn't scream to me like how the world is going towards. That seems like maybe a good way into decentralizations, but there's just so much that's being put in place by a lot of the large companies that I just see it more screaming towards more amalgamation of things. So when you think of the really, really large companies now, of your Apples, your Alphabet, of Meta, of whatever,
Amazon,
all of these, Amazon, right? The amount of sectors that they play in, the amount of things that they're buying up in terms of the companies that are around and just becoming like behemoths. I still see it that in the years to come, that's just going to be more and more and more until some point that's not going to work. And I think that's why I said like maybe even further into the future, then it gets spread into decentralization as people now partake in the environment and in the technology. And then it's sort of like that next generation that understands that, I can operate on my own coins and my own things, and I don't need to go through this. I can go in through other means. I don't know that especially with physical things, that they can change that quickly in 4 something years.
Okay. Yeah, it's not like everything has to in what I'm imagining, but okay, that's interesting. So if I had to say, I would have said you won't have bigger companies than there are now in kind of 4 years' time. Like if I would have thought you'd see more splintering off of portions of these things because they got too big. Like I get the feeling they're too big now, and that in 4 or 5 years' time they'll be, when I say 3 years' time, I guess 2025, that they would be maybe less big. But you feel like they're going to get bigger and bigger.
Absolutely, I reckon for sure they're going to get bigger. Like I think that there will become a time when,
because obviously, unless you imagine a singularity, there's going to have to be
there's going to be a time.
Can't be
for sure, but I just don't think that the time is in these 2020s. I don't think that the time is going to come that there's going to be enough new things that come up that are going to overtake. And I think predominantly the reason being is that they've almost hit like an inflection point where they have so much power, money, and say of things. And this is the point you were saying about Elon Musk, right? They're at such a level that they're almost changing the reality of what is to come. They're at that level. So when you look back at previous companies, like the really large companies, you had the banks, right? You had ExxonMobil, you had all of those things.
Oil companies, the railroads.
Now they came and then went off the top 10 and top whatever. Because, some of them, for sure, they kind of just went out of business, right? Some of them did. Others, they got taken up by the digital revolution that came through, and that just was a lot more valuable. A lot of them are still there. They're still operating the same spaces that they did. ExxonMobil, Shell, all of those. They're still there. It's just that all of these ones which are digitally interacting with the world, which connect with more humans, just make a lot more money. right? They're just making a lot more money. They're interacting with more people. Cool. That's what's happening. In my mind, I go, okay, say, take a Meta, right? And I think it's something like some ginormous number of like billions of people that interact with it. To have a bigger company than this, right? For whatever purpose, or either you have a company that takes 80% of humanity's attention to 100%, which, man, like I don't know what the hell you're going to do that, or you just have lots of different players who take like little share market pieces, and it just sort of slowly sort of twiddles down. I think it's probably like the latter will happen, but I don't see it happening in 3 years, like not even close. And when you hear Zuckerberg talking about with Meta and the work they're doing in AI and VR and AR, that's not even stuff that's going to come and hit people in the offices and people in like real life for 5 years, right? They're going to be like right in the foothold for it to uptake, and it'll appear to the everyday human like it is another company, but it won't be. It'll just all be owned by the giant corporations that exist now, right? So I don't know how long BlackRock has operated now for in its state, but I think I actually saw a little post about this. It's algorithm. Have you heard of Aladdin? Aladdin. Maybe. People can go look that up. It's like a algorithm
I have heard of that, yes.
So the algorithm of BlackRock of Aladdin, right? It's been operating for about 20 years and making them squillions, plenty of money. Like that's been operating in the back end loads of times.
What does it do?
It helps them allocate the assets in the best way possible mathematically.
Yeah.
Now, like they, for a lot of parts, control and have the power of a lot of companies, right? They are huge market makers, but most people on the street don't know that. You ask them about that, they have no idea. All they know is there's Google, there's Amazon, or there's Alphabet, and there's all these other things, and it doesn't compute that there's already operational, groups looking after a lot of the funding or the money that really is defining reality. So for someone to get past that, it's going to need like a big shift in humanity and its operation on how we work. I don't see that in 3 years. I see it maybe in a little while longer. And so that's why I go, man, I'd be hard pressed to see that sort of fabric of humanity change in 3 years for Valley to be the thing that rises this thing to the next thing. I go, nah, the next thing is going to be the huge players, Alphabet, Amazon, BlackRock, all of those go ham into crypto or blockchain or whatever it may be. There's your next thing, because now you have more money floating in the system. What happens if, the derivatives market is like trillions of dollars or whatever it may be? What if a lot of that money gets shifted into crypto derivatives or into blockchain technology? Okay, if you have more money in the system, everyone's making more money, more people have got eyeballs on it, you've got technology being built on it, cool. There's your extra money. Awesome, fantastic. But once that happens, and I think the adoption of humanity comes into the space, and so you're operating it because it becomes easier, people just want to do it, and it'll be because of money. It won't be so much because of the technology, I think, still, because it'll be like, okay, that company, as you're funding it, you're gonna be like, oh, you can get from 100,000 eyeballs to 10 million eyeballs. And what do we have to do? Okay, we have to make it less secure from the technology perspective, but more operable, so people can actually get onto it a lot easier. Oh, so I just have to use a QR code or whatever. Awesome, cool. We do that. We get more people in. That's more money for us. Still not probably supporting the underlying technology, but it's using it in some way, shape, or form. And then once that's usable, being used at a broader market, then I think the next leg up later will be the understanding of that underlying technology and using it for its full purpose.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I mean, look, a lot of this is definitely wishful thinking on my part. And I had my mind blown yesterday when Brendan was setting up a video of us doing a time lapse of handstand push-ups. And he set it up, and like just before he was about to start recording, he was like, oh yeah, check this out. And he has an Apple Watch as well. And he was showing the video from his camera on his Apple Watch, and he could press the record button on there, and I just went like, dang, I haven't seen that before. That's fucking gangster.
Blowing your mind.
But that, I imagine that's been around for a while.
A little while. Have you seen the fact that you can connect them up to your hand gestures as well, so that the hand gesture can record and pause it as well? No. Yeah, I'm pretty sure, like even with your Samsung, it does it. So if you've got the phone set up, you can do like hand up, this sign or whatever, and it'll do
Naruto.
it'll do like 3-second timer, play it, stuff like that. So like,
Wow, that's wild.
that's what I mean. All of these things like already exist, but that's why there's a next step up. For me, it's centralization.
Yeah.
It's centralization. It's becoming less secure, but it's using the technology in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah. Well, I'm not a technologist per se, so there was a I mentioned on the last Meanderings where I wanted to talk about like what a job does to you and how it and it like can kind of like screw you up in a way, like make things weird.
Yep.
And one of the things that I somehow got into this twisted mindset where I think I was just so fucking exhausted that my brain stopped working in like normal ways, and I got a pleasure out of not learning new things, where it was like that.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, it was like I hear a new thing, like new technology or a new thing, or the landlady was like asking, oh, can you help set up the HDTV cord or something. It's like that, and I kind of derived a pleasure from being like, no, I don't really know about those things. I don't really care about that. I don't want to know about it neither.
That definitely sounds like some alarm signals of being like, okay,
fuck
there's
it, man.
there's something bad going on.
Yeah, 100%.
Damn.
And I look back at that now and I go, oh man, that is just a weird mindset you're in. Like, what the fuck was that? And I think it was the day-to-day drudgery of not only day-to-day, but week-to-week and month-to-month. Because we had the weekly plan, and then we had the daily plan, like the daily spreadsheet, the weekly spreadsheet, the monthly spreadsheet, the yearly fucking spreadsheet. And I think it was me just continually alternating between these one like drudging kind of thing after the other. And, I was there for 3 years and the spreadsheet that I was introduced to on my first day looked exactly the same as the spreadsheet.
Yeah, that's painful.
Except... we added dozers in, and then we took dozers away because dozers need their own spreadsheet. And, I created the dozer spreadsheet, and, maybe that still exists, but it was just like, I'm not an Excel wizard. I could barely even get a, addition of insert time here to add more time onto to do our chapter markers. And Peter had to help us out with that. Like that, damn. It was that, I think it was that forcing of my brain into like a constant monotony, which that then kind of transferred over onto the personal life, which was like constant monotony equals good, like change equals unpleasant and bad. Because anytime there was change at work, it was painful. It wasn't exciting. I don't want to deal with it. It wasn't exciting. Awesome. Like let's have some more change.
And that's a challenge. I think in a work perspective, I actually think for a lot of ways, I think working can be good, especially if you can be working in like the leading edge of things that you find interesting. Like holy hell, like that's where you're gonna get like all the benefits out of things. 'Cause I can just imagine people who are still working in the forefront of Web3, AI, anything like that. Man, to me, I'm like that wouldn't seem like a job at all, even though it would be 9 to 5 and you have meetings and whatever.
You're doing stuff. Yeah.
You're learning a lot of stuff. You're finding out a lot of things, but if it was monotonous, if it was the same thing, like. Yeah, look, Meanwhile Lights, if you're out there and you really enjoy working at Big W or like a shopping center or something like that for the rest of your life, like that's okay. I'm not taking that away from you, but
kudos to you.
Man, I don't want to do that. Like I don't want to do that. For sure, there's be that resentment of life of just not learning new things, and you'd probably fall into the drudgery of, I just want to do this because that's what I do, and I just want to go do something else afterwards, and maybe you stop trying to find things and new things, and you're like, okay, that's it. I've deemed this to be my life, and that's what's going to continue on.
Yeah, no, there's certain personality types. One of the guys I worked with was I'd put him in that box. He loves the kind of the sameness. Go out on fishing on the weekends. He had his girlfriend and they were engaged for I don't know like 4 or 5 years or something. Like it was he definitely thrived on having that sameness and that clarity and that same assurance that, today is going to be like tomorrow and tomorrow is going to be like next week and next week's going to be like next month, that sort of thing. And I wouldn't say I thrived in it. there's aspects of my personality that likes that, especially like the routine kind of thing. But yeah, there was also just the kind of like dumbing down. I feel like that was probably the stupidest I've ever been, actually. Like working. Just
because you're not needing to think beyond the scope of what you know. Yeah. I think, at least for me, I know that I enjoy working. I like the discipline of a structure.
You like a new job every 2 weeks.
But I like the chaos. That comes with existing job, new job. And I know myself, if I'm working in somewhere that's like incredibly chaotic, where things are just going wild, that's like the funnest. That's like the best. That's I'm like, yep, this is the best. And
I've never worked in an environment like that, so I can't even say how I'd handle that. I imagine not too well, but
yeah, like working in startup, I think for people it could be really something that they don't enjoy, because you might be working 80-hour weeks and feel like you're chasing your own tail. But there's a lot of growth in it. There's a lot of learnings in it. And I think that to me just sounds fun. Like that to me was like, working 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. or 8 p.m. every day, because you're trying to push forth for something or idea or something you're creating. Cool. That sounds like up my alley. But if it was, you're just doing the same old for not much of a why, and even if there is a why, it's not valuable. It doesn't seem valuable in the scope of things, and it's like, what kind of? It almost feels to me like, what kind of mark are you trying to make on the world? And it just seems like, that doesn't seem like a very. I was gonna say inspirational, but it just doesn't feel like a very, like redeemable one. If I was to look back on life and go, yeah, I can't say that was redeemable for what you'd mark as a good life. Just be like, it was a life. Yeah, cool. Yeah. So. Well, there you go. Nice. Money. I had something from kind of a little bit of the previous one as well, which was the previous Meanderings that we did, which was just around hybrid training.
Yes.
So hybrid training.
Now, people at home, I get to see these things because Juan doesn't do the editing. But what was the name of the guy who...
Fergus Crawley? Yep. Fergus Crawley.
You did not know that in that episode.
No, I think I said Ferguson.
You didn't. No, you said someone completely different. You didn't even get his name.
Right. You just said
the Scottish guy.
Yeah. I said like the Scottish guy. Yeah. Fergus Crawley.
So I had to find him out afterwards, and I was just just today when you were mentioning in the latest episode, the episode 337. Where you were saying, I couldn't remember the name, something starting with K, and I was just like, oh yeah, that's a fucking that's a Juan description. Like that's a decent effort. If the K is even correct, like it'd
be pretty good. Exactly. That's why I was like, oh man, I don't know. But Fergus Crawley,
indeed. Yeah. So his hybrid training.
So I saw his hybrid training, and then actually got me along the mindset of another guy called Nick Bear, who also calls himself the hybrid athlete.
Okay, I've seen both of these people on our YouTube subscriptions.
Correct, yeah. So and Nick is someone I've been listening to for a long time, actually. Although not for I haven't listened for like 6 months, something like that. But I've watched some of his stuff for a couple of years now. Those two kind of call themselves the hybrid trainers, hybrid athletes, which I never really gave much of an insight or a thought to. But another thing that I was reading and finished now when this gets released a couple of weeks ago was the David Goggins Can't Hurt Me book. And in there, he also had a piece about just the rucking, the long distance stuff, the ultra marathons. Now, all of that at the same time that I was watching some of these other hybrid training things, kind of, I don't know, something clicked in my mind where I was like, ooh, this is kind of like what I'm starting to veer towards. I'm veering towards. I can see it in myself. Even when if you look back at my annual goals, I go, there's 2Ks of swimming in there. There's running a half marathon.
Yeah, you got like 8 things.
There's all these heavy lifting stuff. There seems to be some Olympic things. There seems to be like pull-ups. Like there's all over the place.
Exactly.
I'm not. If you were to look at that, you wouldn't go, oh, he's not trying to like maximize one thing. It's to do everything just a little bit better, or do it more basically. And I kind of went
more.
Oh, all right, that seems to align with some of these things that this hybrid training model is. And I've heard of this hybrid model now for like a long time. I've seen it come up for a long thing, but probably before Nick Bear was even talking about it. And I know that Fergus Crawley was doing it like 2017 is when he started or something like that. Okay. So maybe around the time I'd heard about this as well. And it sort of, at least it put me in a mindset of like, oh, maybe that might be a good way to start orientating my training. Maybe I'll find more fun. And again, this comes to in the previous episode I was talking about just the mentality of I need to change something it's perhaps going to be in my fitness, not so much now on anything else. And I'm starting to see that already. We're coming into summer now, at least for us in Australia.
Coming into summer, it's just started spring, man.
We'll start spring. We're starting to warm up. Yeah. So for me, I'm including now things where I'm introducing more runs. I'm bringing in some swimming now, and I'm really enjoying these workout sessions where I'm doing a bit of everything, and it feels fun. It feels good.
Yeah.
And then an aspect I was reading in David Gonga's book, he's got this particular idea of taking souls, and there's a classic view that he was saying, a classic story where he was said that they were in the middle of Hell Week. I think it was in the first one, and it was a boat crew, one of the boat crew 2, I think. And there's a particular bit, and if you don't know what Hell Week is, just go Google it. Like really, really intense
Navy
training.
SEALs, yeah.
And they, at this point, you should feel really tired. You shouldn't be wanting to pick up the boat over your head with all your crew and whatnot. And he did this mental thing of like, oh no, I'm gonna take the officer's soul here who's trying to make me do this. And at the point where they were like, okay, you can put the boats down, he was like, nah, motherfuckers, like, and just got his team to keep on fucking throwing the boat up and down, being like, you can't break boat team, you can't break this boat team. And I was like, it was a funny story. But I similarly applied it just the other day when I was talking to you about the running. So I was on the treadmill trying to do a 2 kilometer run, and someone came next to me, and I was like, this is the mentality, like don't get off this treadmill until this person next to me doesn't like get on the treadmill. So there was this mixture of things, which I've never had that mentality in a specific lift or a specific event. Like I would never be like that in a run or a bench, like a specific thing. No, because I'm there to do more things. But then when I put it all together, and that aspect of almost taking souls like mentality, but almost for myself, but in the fun of doing a little bit of everything. So then the example, practically again, what does it actually mean, Juan? So the other day, and I wrote it down, was I had to do a heavy bench, right? Mm. So what would you expect the normal thing for a heavy, like someone to come in to do a heavy PB? You come in, you'd warm up on the bench a little bit, you'd stretch out, you'd walk your way up, right? And I was like, nah, you know what? I'm going to do this a really fun way. So I warmed up for 20 minutes doing handstands. I basically was doing handstand work, handstand pressing. I did like handstand push-ups. I did handstand walks, like a few sets of just walking across the gym, basically. That was my warm-up. To then warm up, I did a couple of bench to get into the max, like PB, like a max hit of bench. There has
to be some sort of actual movement.
Yeah, so I did that. And so what you normally see after that is like, okay, good. Like they've hit maximum bench. The normal mindset might be like, okay, time to go and do whatever, triceps or something else. Now you've hit that. And I was like, nah, cool. This is like where it feels like good. So then I did end up doing another. I ended up doing, it would have been like 6.5 tons of benching after that max. So I got to the max and then did another like just a ton load of benching. And I was like, okay, like this was fun. Did a little bit of biceps, and I'm like, okay, let's change it up again. And that's where I did more handstands. So then I did more handstand holds, and then I went upstairs and then just ran on the treadmill. And I was like, you know what? That was good fun. Like that was a really fun workout. It's one of those workouts, or like the mentality that you never see this planned anywhere. Like you never see this sort of workout.
No,
when you go somewhere, you're like
the worst planning of a routine.
Yeah, you'd be like, oh, you wanna become good at like at your chest. You want to get hypertrophy. Do this for the optimal method. You want to become really strong. Do this for the optimal method. You want to be a runner. Do this. You want to do a handstand. Do this. And I went, it's kind of clicking to me. I don't want to do anything optimally. Like that doesn't impress me. It doesn't interest me at all.
Yeah.
To do 2 years of optimal training for the best bench press, because I don't give a shit. Like I don't want to be the best person at bench pressing. I don't want to be the best person at handstand. I don't want to be the best runner. I don't want to be the best anything. That doesn't interest me at all. Doesn't. But what does interest me is like just doing all of them to some degree, where just for general population, it's like, that's insane. Like that's at whatever level, like all of it put together. Okay, now that's out of control. So I went, okay, that's probably where my training is going to orientate towards. So I mean, every workout session is going to be like that, me and Borderline?
Yes,
no,
it does.
No, it doesn't mean every training session is like that for me. But they're starting to become more like that. So don't be surprised. I think if you hear me, in a few months' time, be like, you know what, I'm going to do a triathlon. you know what? I'm going to do this because, ultimately...
Don't be surprised if you hear Juan doing push-ups outside your front door at 3 a.m.
Exactly. It's going to take your soul. So, yeah, but I think with the triathlon, it's a 1.5 kilometer swim, 40 kilometer bike ride, and I think 10 kilometer run. And I went, damn, that's less than what I'm actually trying to do for this annual goal in terms of I'm trying to do 2 kilometer swim. I don't have bike riding, but I did 30 kilometers the other day. And I'm trying to do 21 kilometer run. So I was like, okay, well, cool. Like, put them all together. That's basically what a triathlon is. But what I ended up really enjoying about Fergus Crawley's thing is like, it's like you do a triathlon, but you're also doing max heavy lifts. And, when you peel apart both of them, he's not the best at triathlon and he's not the best at that lifting. But like put together, all of a sudden, it seems... quite superhuman. Like it seems quite interesting to be able to be so good at a myriad of things. So, and in that mentality of taking cells, that's why I was like, it would be so fun to line up at the start of like a triathlon race and just be like jacked 95 kilos, but everyone's like, lean down in terms of like, that's what they want to do.
Yeah.
And just do it anyways. Not for the sake of the time, but for the sake of doing it. Like actually just doing it.
Yeah. Or like being in the car park beforehand, ripping out, like 65 kilo dumbbells or something. And
yeah, I think it's maybe it's the preparedness about it as well that I went, that would be really cool. Like that seems incredibly fun in thinking about it. Or almost like, for whatever, I don't know if there's a purpose, but for what, I mean, there could be a purpose if you're hanging off a cliff and you have to pull yourself up. But, if you're mucking around with people, just pull a muscle up out of nowhere just for fun. Like you can just do that. But at the same time, you could run a kilometer. Like, I guess more practical. Let's be really practical for me and Immortal at home. Regardless of the community that I'm in, I could just perform with them in whatever thing that might be. So if I had friends and they're like, cool, let's go kayaking and swimming. Awesome, let's do that. We want to go for a run? Cool, let's go running. You want to go for a bike ride? Cool. You want to do whatever? Awesome. Just to be like quite good at everything, to just be able to partake and perform. I like that. I like that mentality. So I was like,
nice.
That's probably what's going to orientate towards its way. So
yeah, cool.
There you go, Immortal. That's an indication of where it's
gonna take
the hybrid train is coming.
Take their soul from the video just for
like it made me think like the other day when you were talking about the pull-ups, when you were like 300 or so pull-ups that you're doing a week. I looked at mine in terms of what I'm going to do for the next month, and I was like, good, I've got to make sure I do 700 plus pull-ups per week now. I was like, it's going to be like not even close. It's going to be like so far beyond. I haven't started yet.
Yeah, but
so I'll let you know how my hands go with that.
Your arms are half the length of mine, so you gotta do quadruple to impress me.
That's not how it works at all. In fact, mine are harder because I weigh more. So by wattage, mine would be a harder pull up.
Oh, but you don't go as high though, so that would take a bit off, wouldn't it? A bit of the pulling strength.
I wouldn't be.
See me, I'm gonna fucking all the way down here.
I don't think
I'm gonna climb a fucking mountain to get up to the top of that bar.
Nah, I don't think it would. I don't even think there would be any scientific study. I've never heard that people with longer arms have a mechanical deficiency to pull-ups.
Yeah. Okay.
Like
I just assumed like you're moving a longer distance that you'd have to be using more work to get to the same. That was my reasoning. Not that as an excuse for doing way less pull-ups than you, but
yeah, like there would be something. I was wondering like to what point would it equate to the same? Like would it be? Oh. Yeah, that's an interesting one.
I don't know.
I've never probably looked
in
into
the calisthenics world, being bigger and longer and is not helpful. So if you're doing front levers, you're fucked. If you're doing back levers, you're fucked.
Yeah, well, that there is a
handstands,
like that's more the fulcrum of the point. So
yes,
I can see that there is actually more momentum around the point of capture. So you're actually tilting more. So it does take a lot more effort than if you didn't have legs. Then you can probably do it a lot easier just because there's less weight and there's less momentum. But in a vertical one, I'm like, do dips? Do you use more power doing dips if you've got longer arms? Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I'm sure in some mechanical way you would, but I wonder if that would be
how much a difference
above like the percentage of the weight difference. I guess.
The weight difference would be much bigger for sure.
Like if you're like a midget but you weigh 100 kilos, does that mean it's easier than like a tall person that weighs 70 kilos?
Yeah, yeah.
I've never seen a midget that's 100 kilos, so we'll never know. But anyway, so that's going to be, I think what you saw in the manual goals with the hybrid training, that's probably something that will probably continue if I'm still enjoying it, and then we'll form like just something about it just makes me feel like it'd be fun, as I was saying with okugakes and the like. Maybe that's where it's going to start trending towards, and then this mentality that I have of I want to do something new, something exciting. It'll be more the body, the fitness aspect of things that'll keep it interesting. Whereas I'll probably lean towards more of the expected in my other realms of life. So I'll be like, I want to get them to a certain level, and then I'm happy for them to remain there. What does that mean? I don't want to become the CEO of a company. I don't want to become like I'm losing more and more interest in the sake of starting a business and running a business and becoming like this well-known person.
It's so strange, man. We're going and like 5 years ago, this would have been opposite. I would have been that, and you would have been the one being like, I want to be the best, not handstander, but I want to be, get to this super high level of X.
Yep.
And now we've like,
now it's like slightly changed. Yeah. Because for me, I'll be like,
what the fuck?
I'll be like, everything's like me more lights. Because I think now it's the idea of running a business in a way. I'm like, it's not that there's no interest, but there's levels of stress that I know come with it that I'm like, I'd rather employ stress in other ways. And for me, it's like the fun that comes from the fitness world and the body world. So
for sure.
That's probably what it's going to be. Yep. So there you go. There you go.
Nice.
Focus crawling. Come for you.
Take your soul.
I'm not going to do the double, whatever. He did it in a double extreme Ironman or something like that, which was like 8 kilometers of swimming and 300 and something kilometers of bike riding and 82 kilometers of running.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's probably not a level, but
no one needs to do that. He's insane.
Yeah, that's a little bit. All right, anything else?
No, I think that we'll end it up here. So this is once again the Mere Mortals podcast and a value for value podcast. So what that means is we provide this value for you up front. There will never be advertising on this show. We don't take sponsorships. We rely solely on your support, especially to fix my broken laptop, which we need mucho support for that. Mucho apoyo. And so to help us out, to support us, there's many ways. You can share it with a friend who maybe is interested in hybrid trading or is curious about maybe some predictions about where the future of money will go and what is money. You can also send in through some specialized knowledge. So if we make a mistake on any of these things, getting called up for that, and so I can correct it would be very nice. And then also, of course, we do Boostergram. So this is using the value for value model through the podcasting 2.0. And basically, we just ask that you go to one of the cool apps. And reason for that is there's better experiences on there. So chapter images, for example, you'll see on there. The person tag. So if you click on that, you'll be able to go to other podcasts of ours that we run. So the Mere Mortals book reviews, for example. There's some really cool things like IVFM if you use one of that. But also in some of them, they have the ability to send us micropayments of Satoshis through Bitcoin. So if you go on to Fountain, Curocaster, Podverse, Castomatic, Breeze, any of these apps, they're very useful for that. And we just ask that you, as you're listening to us, set a streaming amount, however much value you got from the podcast, send it back to us and send us through a boost message. We read that out every musing session live on Wednesday, 7 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time.
Ooh.
Dang. That's
a mouthful. Yeah. Damn. Well, there you go. For now, Immortalized will leave you there. Take care wherever you are in the world. Juan out.
Karen out. Yes.